Welcome to Performance Work Statements Training. If you approve, review, oversee, or play a role in developing performance work statements, it's important that you are knowledgeable about and able to identify when a performance work statement does and doesn't clearly define a requirement. In this training section, I'll show you how to easily take your performance requirement summary and create the structure of a performance work statement. The performance work statement really is the backbone of our contracts. Without it, everything else falls apart. Performance work statements are defined as a statement of work for performance-based acquisitions that describes the required results in clear, specific, and objective terms with measurable outcomes. Performance-based performance work statements must, to the maximum extent practicable, describe the work in terms of the desired outcome and not how to do the work. For example, a traditional performance work statement would have directed a contractor to hire 4 telephone operators to ensure telephone support was available 24/7, 365. However, a performance-based performance work statement requires the contractor to ensure telephone support is available 24/7, 365. This leaves the how-to up to the contractor and requires only that the telephones be supported 24 hours a day. If you recall, there are 3 things the FAR requires for performance-based acquisitions: a performance work statement, measurable performance standards with a method of assessing contractor performance, and performance incentives where appropriate. At this point in your requirement definition process, you and your team should have the performance objectives, performance standards, acceptable quality levels, and have a good idea of the surveillance methods which you want to use to assess the contractor's performance. This satisfies having measurable performance standards and methods of assessing the contractor's performance. And in the last training session, we discussed performance incentives. Now, all that's left from this list is the performance work statement, or PWS. So let's do it. There is no required format for the PWS, but the standard PWS has 5 sections: an introduction section, a scope of work section, a requirements performance standard section, a contract deliverables data requirements section, and an attachments, appendices, and exhibits section. Let's examine what is contained in each of these sections now. The introduction section of your PWS describes the organization, the background and general scope of the requirement, and the goals of the requirement. The introduction should be direct and straight to the point. Using short and concise sentences, the introduction section consists of several paragraphs such as organization. The organization paragraph includes the office name that is responsible for acquiring the services. You will want to add a sentence such as these services support, and then go on to explain the organization which they are supporting. Background. The purpose of the background section is to provide the reader with historical information that helps them understand the current requirement, where it came from, and where it's going. For example, it might start off stating, "This is a new requirement," or "This requirement has been performed over blank number of years." Then list any background information that will help potential contractors understand more about how the requirement came to exist. Goals. In performance of this requirement, our goal is to support, maintain, provide, distribute, and any other required actions that are being taken in order to arrive at the end objective of the requirement. Just as there's no required format for the PWS, there's no required format for the PWS introduction. The introduction should serve as an introduction to the situation or scenario, much like a book or a movie does. You can't just start watching a movie in the middle and expect to understand what's going on. You must be introduced to the key concepts and context of the scenario first. The scope of work section will expound upon the introduction and provide more details of the requirement and what needs to be accomplished. The first paragraph of the scope of work section usually provides a broad overview of the scope such as, the contractor shall provide all personnel, equipment, tools, materials, etc. to successfully install, train, maintain, sustain, support, troubleshoot, etc. the system, program, service, name of the requirement, etc. Cover the whole spectrum of what this requirement is about in this first paragraph. The scope of work section will then go to briefly describe the purpose of the current work, its relation with the overall mission, and the desired outcome. For example, I wrote this. The type of activities included in the computer support requirement are detailed in Section 3 and include computer problem resolution support, which includes field support, telephone support, software support, and hardware support. This requirement includes conference room support, including the support and maintenance of video teleconference, overhead projector, and computer systems. This requirement also provides website maintenance and support. All performance requirements include inventory control as necessary to support these functions. The services required are to set up, maintain, and provide continued computer access for the estimated 3,200 users in the organization. In this section, you want the reader to understand the magnitude of the requirement and have a basic understanding of the tasks and levels of effort necessary to successfully perform the contract. So rather than listing out every individual task to be accomplished and elaborating on it, it would be more appropriate to summarize your list of high-level objectives and communicate the requirement's vision and overall desired end state. After that, you may include the period of performance, the place of performance, hours of operation, security clearance requirements, holiday schedules, and any other conditions which will directly affect the contractor's performance. The Requirements/Performance Standards section of the PWS will essentially be the work breakdown structure, converted into paragraphs in sections of the PWS, and then there will be written descriptions added which clearly define the magnitude, quality, quantity, and other details required to satisfy the government's needs. After the outline in the sections of the Requirements Performance Standards sections have been decided, you can begin inserting the performance standards from the Performance Requirements Summary into their appropriate sections. For any areas of performance which you did not include in the PRS, simply add a sentence about what the desired outcome of that task is. These are the sentences I composed after I wrote my PRS. From there, you will add sentences and paragraphs which describe your requirement. To add new sentences and create the context of this section and to ensure your requirements section is comprehensive and complete, you can employ a variety of tactics. The most popular tactic is called the 6 W's test. The 6 W's: who, what, when, where, why, and how. It's not necessary to answer each and every of the W's for every task within the PWS. In fact, the how is literally not required for performance-based acquisitions, but you should consider it just to ensure that you've thought through all aspects of the task. To see this 6 W's in action, let's take a quick look at how one might develop 3.1.1 Telephone Support. First, we add our performance standard. Every phone call answered within 5 rings. Then, we have the who. The contractor shall provide the government with. What? Telephone answering services. When? 24 hours a day, 7 days a week except federal holidays. Where? The where in this case is a good example of how the 6 W's can guide us into telling the contractor how to perform the task. So be careful not to direct the contractor how to do the job. I'll walk you through my thoughts on this where question. So, where will the contractor provide telephone support? There are several wheres. Where will the contractor be located? Where will the calls be received? Where will the calls be originating? While answering these questions, we recognize new questions that needed answers, like, does the contractor need to be co-located with the government for mission effectiveness? Will they use DSN lines only, or DSN and commercial lines? If commercial phone lines are used, will there be a phone bill? If so, who's responsible for paying it? Will the contractor be responsible for maintaining or repairing phone lines? As you can see, this opens up a whole new line of questions that will need answers. So, the team came together and answered the where questions and came up with this. And then we have the why and the how. The result of this exercise looks like this. After some wordsmithing, it is easily turned into this. Pause the video if necessary. Using this technique is a simple way to thoroughly think through the dynamics of each task within your PWS. It will almost certainly raise more questions and uncover more areas that need to be addressed within the requirement in PWS. This is a good thing if your goal is to avoid solicitation amendments, contract modifications, PWS rewrites, and answering extensive vendor questions about unclear or conflicting work descriptions. later in the acquisition process when the cost of change is higher and more time-consuming. As you see, sentences are written as short, concise, and clear statements of fact. There are no complex words or technical jargon. The 6 W's answers were addressed, and the sentences were rearranged into a logical sequence of natural communication. In order to complete the requirements/performance standards section of your PWS, follow this process for each performance objective in your work breakdown structure, and for tasks that you have identified as necessary to be in the PWS. The contract deliverables/data requirements section generally includes information-driven deliverables that the contractor will need to deliver to the government. The purpose of a contract deliverable is to require the contractor to communicate technical information, analysis reports, quality assurance, technical meetings, or any other technical status of work information so that the government can have a clear understanding of a contract status and, moreover, provide the government the ability to maintain positive control over a contract's fundamental work elements. Common examples of contract deliverables for performance-based acquisitions include pre-performance reports. Examples include management plans, staffing plans, a quality control plan, or other reports where the contractor describes how they propose to execute specific aspects of the requirement's performance. Special reports, such as progress reports, performance analysis reports, meeting minutes, manpower or equipment reports, etc. Standard operating procedure deliverables, such as technical training plans, quality control plans, or other technical data deliverables. Any contract deliverables required by the contracting officer may be required as frequently as necessary to ensure the contract is being fulfilled. Contract deliverables can be required 1 time per contract, 2 times per contract, 1 time per month, 3 times per year, or at any intervals necessary to ensure the contractor remains compliant with the technical aspects of the contract. However, beware not to unnecessarily require excessive contract deliverables in this section. Requesting too many contract deliverables can cause confusion, waste valuable time, and distract contractors from focusing their efforts on more important aspects of the contract's actual performance. The general rule of thumb is to limit data collection to what's needed by the government to make decisions or comply with other higher-level requirements. The attachments, appendices, and exhibits section includes documents that are provided from the government to the contractor as necessary to provide the contractor with supplementary information needed to help the contractor understand, perform, and be compliant with a contract's terms and conditions. Attachments may include drawings, specifications, and technical documents. Appendices may include government regulations, policies, or government forms to be used during contract administration, and exhibits may include items such as historical workload data, schedule data, or other documents relating to the requirement. Be selective in the attachments that you choose to include in your PWS. Choose only those documents necessary to communicate vital contract information. If you do have attachments, appendices, or exhibits that need to be attached to a requirement, ensure you provide access to the documents as either a direct attachment or through an active internet link that will direct them to the reference documents. Obviously, vendors need access to documents if they have to be compliant with them. Include the name of the document, the number of pages, and the date for any reference documents or regulations. And one more thing. Make sure the attachments, appendices, and exhibits don't conflict with other sections of your solicitation and contract.